What if the relationship that hurt you the most also felt like the most love you've ever experienced? Not despite the pain. Because of it, what if the intensity, the obsession, the feeling that you would do anything to keep that person, what if none of that was love? What if it was a mechanism, a pattern so precise, so psychologically targeted, that it was almost impossible to distinguish from the real thing? Not because you were naive, not because you were weak, but because the pattern was designed, consciously or not, to feel exactly like what you've always wanted love to feel like. Here is the part that changes everything. The most effective manipulation doesn't look like control. It doesn't look like cruelty. It doesn't announce itself. IT looks like someone who finally sees you, finally chooses you, finally makes you feel like you are the most important person in the room. And then, slowly, so slowly you don't notice until you already deep inside it. It takes that feeling away and give it back, and takes it away again. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly how that pattern works. You'll see the architecture of it, the stages, the psychology behind why it works on intelligent, self-aware people more than almost anyone else. And you'll understand why leaving, even when you knew it was wrong, felt impossible. Let's be specific. Because this isn't a video about obvious abuse. This is a video about the relationship where everything started beautifully. They pursued you hard. They remembered the small things you mentioned in passing. They texted first. They made plans and followed through. They looked at you like you were the answer to a question they'd been asking their whole life. Nobody had ever made you feel like that. And you told yourself, finally someone who matches my energy. Finally someone who isn't afraid to be all I in. So you went all in too. And then something shifted. Not dramatically. Not with a fight or a clear moment you could point to. Just the warmth cooled slightly. The responses slowed. The plans got more vague. The look in their eyes that used to make you feel chosen started appearing less frequently. And you did what any reasonable person does when something they love starts slipping away. You tried harder. You became more attentive, more available. Be more careful about what you say and how you say it. You started monitoring their moods the way you check the weather, constantly, and with your whole body. You stopped bringing up things that upset them. You started shrinking the parts of yourself that seemed to create friction. And here's the part nobody talks about. Occasionally, not always, but just enough, they came back. Full warmth, full intensity. A moment so good it erased 3 weeks of confusion. A conversation so deep it made you feel like you had imagined the distance, and you held on to that moment. You replayed it. You used it as proof that the relationship was real, that the person you fell for was still in there, that if you could just figure out what caused the shift, you could get back to who they were in the beginning. You were not imagining things. But you were also not seeing the full picture. Most people figure this out too late, after they've restructured their entire personality around keeping someone comfortable who was never going to be satisfied. Here is the tension you need to understand before anything else makes sense. Manipulation in relationships almost never starts as manipulation. It starts as chemistry. There's a term for the opening phase, the phase that hooked you in. Psychologists who study coercive relationship patterns call it love bombing. But that term has been so overused that it's lost its weight. So let's describe it precisely. Love bombing is not just being romantic. It is not just someone being enthusiastic about you. It is the deliberate or instinctive flooding of another person's attachment system with so much intensity, so much apparent devotion, so much focused attention that their brain begins to associate this person with safety, significance, and survival. Not roughly. Exactly that. The brain doesn't distinguish between genuine love and the performance of love when it's receiving enough of the right signals. It simply releases the chemicals of bonding. Oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, all of it, all at once. You weren't falling for a person. You were falling for a neurochemical state. And the person learned, again, consciously or not, that they could trigger that state in you. Here's where the trap closes. Once your brain has experienced that level of intensity, ordinary love feels flat. Relationships that are actually healthy, consistent, calm, reciprocal, register as boring, as lacking spark, as missing something you can't name, because your nervous system has been calibrated to a level of stimulation that only this person provides, and they know it. Even if they don't know they know it, here's what I got wrong about this for years. I thought manipulation required malicious intent. I thought the person had to be consciously running a strategy, had to know exactly what they were doing. That is not how most of this works. Many people who run these patterns are themselves wounded. Many of them genuinely believe they love you. Many of them are not sitting in a room planning your psychological unraveling. They're doing what their own attachment wounds taught them to do. Pursue intensely until they feel secure. Then withdraw to test whether you'll stay. Then return with warmth to confirm their power over the connection. It is a cycle born from fear. But that doesn't make it less destructive. And here's the thing that should make you lean forward right now. The reason this pattern works so well on emotionally intelligent people, on people who are self-aware, who have done the work, who pride themselves on their ability to read situations, is precisely because of those qualities. The more empathetic you are, the more likely you are to explain their behavior rather than react to it. The more self-aware you are, the more quickly you turn the analysis on yourself. The more you understand psychology, the more generous you are with context. Your greatest strengths become the exact mechanism by which you stay too long to be. Why the time I finish this next point, you will never look at the concept of chemistry the same way again. Here is the revelation. Not a lesson, not a tip, a complete shift in how you see this. The intensity you felt in that relationship, the obsession, the highs, the feeling that this person reached parts of you no one else had ever touched. That was not evidence of love. It was evidence of a wound being activated. Here's what that actually means. Every person who grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, where affection came and went without clear reason, where approval had to be earned and could be revoked at any moment, that person developed an attachment system primed for unpredictability. Their nervous system learned love is something you have to work for, something you can lose without warning, something that requires constant monitoring to keep that SO when they enter adulthood and meet someone who is warm and then cold, available and then withdrawn, loving and then distant. Their nervous system doesn't fire a warning signal that IT fires recognition. This feels familiar. This feels like what I know I love to be. The chaos doesn't repel them. It pulls them in, because somewhere in their nervous system, this is the blueprint. And the person doing the pulling, the one cycling between warmth and withdrawal, often had the same blueprint. They also grew up with love that required pursuit. They also learned that closeness is dangerous, that being truly known means being truly rejected. They pull people in and push them away. Not to be cruel, because it is the only relationship they know how. To have two people, two wounds, one dance. Here's the second part of the revelation, and this is the one that changes what you do next. The addiction you felt to that person was not about them. Not roughly. Exactly. It was about the intermittent reinforcement of your own deepest need. Intermittent reinforcement is a psychological principle. When a reward is given unpredictably, sometimes you get, sometimes you don't, with no clear pattern, the pursuit of that reward becomes obsessive, more powerful than if the reward came consistently every time. Slot machines work this way. So did that relationship. The moments of warmth, of connection, of feeling chosen, they hit harder because they were unpredictable. The brain releases more dopamine in anticipation of an uncertain reward than a guaranteed one, which means every time they came back after pulling away, the feeling was amplified. Every reunion was intoxicating precisely because the distance had made you uncertain, and uncertainty, in an attachment system already primed for it, feels exactly like passion. Here's what I want you to sit with. You were not addicted to the person. You were addicted to the uncertainty, to the anticipation, to the way your nervous system had learned to mistake anxiety for aliveness. The highs required the lows to exist. The lows were not accidents. They were the mechanism. This is why the relationship felt more intense than others. Not because the love was deeper, because the wound was older. And here is what that means for you right now. If you have left that relationship, or if you're still in it, the work is not to figure out whether they loved you. The work is to ask, why did this feel like love when it felt like this? What did you learn early in your life that made Inconsistency feel like intimacy? What made you equate the effort of keeping someone with the proof that they were worth keeping? Because those two questions, answered with complete honesty, are worth more than any conversation you will ever have with the person who hurt you. Here's the reframe that ends this: a relationship that requires you to perform, shrink, pursue, and wait is not a relationship with someone else. It is a relationship with your own unresolved need to be chosen by someone who keeps withholding the choice. The problem was never them. The problem was never you. The problem was the match. Two people with the same wound, trying to heal it through each other, and instead reopening it every single day. That cycle ends the moment you stop needing it to look like love in order to call it what it was. So here is where the actual work starts. Not the emotional processing work, the recognition work. The first thing you need to do, and do this today, not eventually, is map the pattern from your own history, not just this relationship. Your history, because the manipulation pattern in toxic relationships does not begin with a manipulative person. It begins with a template, a blueprint your nervous system built before you had the language to name it. Ask yourself this honestly. In the relationships that hurt you most, what did the beginning feel like? Was there an intensity that felt almost faded? A sense that this person understood you faster than anyone should? A feeling of being seen that was so overwhelming it almost felt like relief. And then, when did the first withdrawal happen? How small was it? And what did you do in response? If you chased, if you softened, apologized, became more available, you confirmed the pattern. And the pattern accelerated. That is not your fault. It is a learned response. And learned responses can be unlearned, but only if you can. See them first. The second thing, and this one is harder than it sounds, is to stop rehabilitating the memory. Most people who have been through this kind of relationship spend years renegotiating the past. They hold the good moments up to the light to check if the love was real. They look for evidence that it wasn't all a cycle. They want to believe that something in it was genuine. Here's the truth. Some of it probably was genuine. That is not the question. The question is, does the presence of genuine feeling change the impact of the pattern? Does their pain, their wound, their own inability to love without controlling, does any of that protect you from the damage? It doesn't. Good intentions inside a destructive pattern still produce destruction. You do not owe your nervous system to someone else's healing journey. The third thing, and if you take nothing from this video except this one thing, the relationships that heal you will not feel like that. They will not feel like an obsession. They will not feel like electricity and uncertainty and constantly checking your phone. They will not feel like you're one wrong move away from losing something essential. They will feel calm. They will feel bored by comparison. And for a nervous system calibrated to chaos, calm will initially register as absence. As for lack of chemistry, as not enough, that is the test. That if a healthy relationship feels flat to you, that is not a sign of incompatibility. That is a sign of how much recalibrating your nervous system still needs to do. The work is not to find a love that matches your wound. The work is to heal the wound until calm feels like safety, until consistency feels like love, until someone who stays without games, without withdrawal, without the cycle, feels like enough. That is not a lower standard. That is the only standard. Here's the question to carry with you after this video. Not was what we had real. Not did they actually love me. Ask yourself this instead. What version of love am I willing to accept? And where did I first learn that this was what love looked like? Sit with that. Write if you have to. Don't rush the answer, because somewhere in that answer is the beginning of a completely different kind of relationship. One that doesn't require you to disappear inside it to keep it alive. There's a pattern that runs deeper than this one. A pattern that starts earlier, not in your romantic relationships, but in your first ones. The ones you had no choice about. The ones that built the blueprint everything else has been running on. That is the video to watch next. Because until you understand where the template was built, you will keep meeting different people and having the same relationship. The cycle doesn't end with leaving. It ends with understanding. Go find out where you're started. Subscribe if this reached something that needed naming. Every week, content designed to help you see the patterns that have been running your life, so you can finally be the one making the choices. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional psychological or therapeutic advice. If you are in or have experienced a psychologically harmful relationship, please reach out to a licensed mental health professional or a domestic abuse support service in your area.